Notion was on fire this year. The team published so many small and big updates, but it can be quite hard to keep track of all of them. Which is why I wanted to put together this big roundup of everything that the Notion team has shipped so far this year. So let's revisit all 63 updates of 2024 and how you can make the most out of them. Number 1 might be the biggest news in a long time. Notion offline mode is coming. Now technically this isn't an update yet because it's only been announced, but this was the most requested feature for such a long time, so I thought it deserves an honorary mention here. I even teased it during the big Make with Notion conference in San Francisco, and since then several team members have confirmed that Notion is working on this for 2025. Now let's go through the actual updates in chronological order and relive this crazy roller coaster of a year for Notion. Starting with January 2024 and Notion Calendar, update number 2. If you haven't tried Notion Calendar yet, highly recommend it. It's been my daily driver basically since it released. Besides just being a really solid calendar app, there's a few really cool features that I use all the time. One of my favorite is probably the scheduling links, right? So you can just press S and then you can highlight any area in your calendar where you want to meet with someone, send them the link, and they can easily book themselves into the calendar, making finding a meeting a breeze. The integration with Notion, of course, could still be better, right? I would love to see the Notion items actually synced into my Google Calendar. That currently still doesn't work, but you can at least overlay items and so see your meetings and your Notion databases side by side. In case you need a full tutorial on how to get started with it, I have linked that down below in the video description. Number 3, Notion database buttons. This is still a fairly underrated feature of Notion, but it becomes really powerful, particularly in another feature that we'll cover in a bit. Basically, what you can do with Notion database buttons is you can use them to trigger actions for this item. So one prime example would be in this, decision making for our marketing assets. I can use it to upvote certain ideas, right? So here, for example, on the YouTube video, I can simply click on upvote, and as you can see, it adds me to this upvote and buy column, and then also increments the votes. The way you build them is just like any other automation in Notion, right? So whenever you click it, that is always a trigger, and you can do something with the page where you clicked it. Other examples would be to use this to assign tasks to you, right, or to move tasks further down the line, or to notify someone based on actions. But again, since it is built into the UI of this specific database item, it makes it really easy to trigger an action just for this specific element. Number 4, Notion Home. This is probably the most controversial update that Notion launched all year. Some people absolutely hated it because you can not really customize it, right? It's a bit of a deviation from Notion's usually, block-based approach where you can, customize it fully. But I see where they're coming from, right? I mean, you probably want to give people an easier way to build dashboards or have this central place if you don't know how to build a dashboard yet. But overall, right, I also would say this is more of a beginner feature rather than something for actual power users. Still, if you haven't seen it, right, in your side tab at the very top, you can access Notion Home. You can, in the top right corners with these settings, make this actually a default page, or also switch away from it if you don't want it, and decide which widgets to hide. The one thing that it can be quite useful for is this My Task section though. And that's because it allows you to pull entries from several databases into one location. Particularly useful if, for whatever reason, you need to have several task databases in your business, right? I would always recommend, if possible, to have one global database. But if you need to have several ones, you can mark them as task database and they will pull in here and all display in this one single view. In order to do so, navigate to any task database and then click on the 3 dots here. And then under Customize Tasks, you see one of the options that you see here is Tasks. If you don't see it, make sure to click on See All Features, that will display everything. And then under Task, you can say, yes, please turn this into a task database. I want to do this, and you can map properties, right? So you need to have a responsive property, you need to have a property that reflects the status, and you need to have one that reflects the due date. Because those are then the 3 properties, right, that will be shown across the different databases in this main one. I turn it into a task database, and now if I head back to Notion Home, you see that I have now here these tasks showing up. And if I had 2 databases, right, that I turned into these task databases that way, they would all show up in this, and I could, just like everywhere else, right, now set up different ways to view this, right? I could change this from a list to a board and so on and so on. And then I get this having it in one single place. Number 5, take actions from mobile notifications. Number 6, shortened URL properties. So now whenever you have a database with the URL property, if you paste the URL there, for example, my Google Share link for this keynote, you see it is shortened, not everything displays, but you can go to edit property and then toggle on show full URL if you want to see everything. Number 7, hide weekends in calendar view. Whenever you have a calendar view in Notion, you can simply now click on the 3 dots and then under layout, you see here the toggle to show weekends, and I can only focus on the 5 days during the week. This works both in the month view and in the week view that you can also reach through the same options. Actually don't know whether they also launched the week view this year or whether that was last year. Totally forgot it. If you remember, please let me know down below. Number 8, hide database icons. If you want a very clean database view and hide these icons, you can do so now under 3 dots and again under layout and then show page icons. Works in pretty much any view. Before we continue, a quick challenge. I did my very best to remember all Notion updates of 2024, but I might have missed a few. So if you can spot any mistakes or oversights, please let me know down below in the comments. Number 9, much faster load speeds for databases both on mobile and on desktop. Tip, if you don't do it yet, please try using the desktop app of Notion. It's usually much faster than using it in your browser. Number 10, change the color of a Notion button. I'm a big fan of buttons as UI elements, so very happy that we can change the color. To do so, simply click on the 6 dots and then down here under color, so I can align this with the orange theme of this page overall. Number 11, a new design for the Notion sidebar. Notion has actually done a lot of changes to the sidebar this year. The particular settings like kept jumping from the top to the bottom and the other way around. But probably the 2 major things are that you can now change the order of all these sections, right? So I can have the private at the very top if I wanted to. I can have favorites at the top. Usually I have private just at the bottom because particularly in team workspace, I don't want people to use the private section. The other thing is that it will automatically hide things now if it's too long. So here under private, right, I can go on the these 3 dots and I can tell it how many I want to show. By default, Notion has started to put this to 5, so you will only see very few items, and you need to click on more and the sidebar opens up for these elements. Not the biggest fan of it. I'd rather have them all here and then just tidy up my sidebar and collapse it rather than them forcing me into this element. But yeah, still important to know how you can adjust this. Number 12. Import PDFs and Google Docs directly as a Notion page. In order to do so, click on the 3 dots in the top right corner, then scroll down to Import. And here you see the new options, among others, PDF Beta. And now we can select whatever we want to import, for example, this PDF page or like a whole document. And in a moment, it will build a Notion page for me. Now, it isn't perfect, particularly if it has a multi-column layout, these sort of things. You might still have to reconstruct this in Notion, right? So like this one here is on the side, right? So I need to move this away. But still, it's a good first version to get quickly a lot of text elements or images into your workspace. Number 13 means quicker access to AI on your phone. Number 14 allows you to crop your images directly in Notion. Particularly useful if you need to quickly create a round version of a picture. So here I have a headshot and I can simply hover over it, go on crop image. And besides the regular cropping options, with just like saying, okay, I want a different section of it, I can also up here go to a certain form, saying, okay, I want a circle, and immediately with one click have now my nicely cropped photo here on my Notion page. And number 15 meant that our filter and sort options are now only showing as icons. You've probably noticed this, right? Now we have only these 2 icons rather than filter and sort as text there. I think this makes it a bit harder actually for new users to use it, but I get where they are going with, a more minimal look of the database overall to reduce visual clutter. Number 16 allows you to pull in your GitHub PR activity directly into the comments of a Notion page. In order to do so, you need 2 things. First, you need to activate the ID properties on your Notion database, right? This is a unique ID. Every task has one, and you can only have one of these properties per database. And then you want to add the GitHub pull requests property. Again, right, you simply click on plus new property, search for it, and then you will be brought to the authorizing page for Notion. And if you do that and connect it that way, any pull request can have now a task associated, and it does 2 things. One, you actually load it in here, and you just get a preview of this, and you can have some elements, right, so that automatically trigger status changes. And if there are any activities on it, it will automatically add them to the page body here as comments, so you can see directly from Notion what has actually happened in GitHub. If you want to stay up to date with these Notion updates throughout the year, then check out my website at matthiasfrank.de/Notion updates. On there, I have a running roundup of everything that I see that Notion publishes and changes, so you never miss a thing. Number 17, 3 new functions for formulas. These 3 new formulas are 1, the today formula, to go besides the now one. Right now gives you the current timestamp, whereas today gives you just the day, making it a bit easier to get it directly. Plus we have now finally mean and median, which makes it much, much easier to calculate averages or insights for your longer statistics in Notion. Number 18 is a big one again, Notion Sites. Notion Sites is a really, really nice upgrade to the capability of sharing Notion pages on the web. Now, on top of just being able to publish a page, you get also site settings, right, to customize it. So if you go just under the share options and here under publish, you see you have site customization, which launches this new editor where, for example, you can choose whether your site should always be in light or in dark mode, or whether you want to follow system settings. You can set a favicon, you have a header, right? So you can create this like website-like functionality here that will be displayed on all pages. You can add Google Analytics, and you can even customize whether the duplicate top template option should be there, breadcrumbs, search, and so on and so on. You can even connect a custom domain if you want to. Custom domains in Notion are a paid extra feature, whereas the rest of the functionality is all free. But still, if you want to have something else rather than these, .notion, .site endings, pretty cool that you can, host basically your website now within Notion. I have a whole range of free templates for different types of Notion websites, from personal websites, company websites, to even like a simple forum idea. You can all download them if you join my newsletter. Link for that in the description. Number 19, database automations can now notify team members. Lots of use case for this one, particularly if you use Notion with a team. Let's say you manage your design request in here, and whenever someone requests a design and you work on it and finish it, you want to tell them, well, it's done. Super simple to do. You just create a database automation. Here's an example. And we say when our status is set to complete, we want to send a notification to a specific person property. The property requested by, right? So we can do it to whoever wanted it. And we can tell them, well, we finished it, or whatever custom message we want. And number 20, if you build very long automations, you'll be very happy about this. You can finally duplicate automation steps. Number 21, Home gets an own integration with Notion Calendar. If you use the Notion desktop app and also have Notion Calendar installed, then we'll automatically start pulling in your meetings for the day into this upcoming event widgets on Notion Home. You can also go in here, right, and say, okay, what do I actually want to see? Do I want to see the next 2 days, only a specific day, and so on and so on. So you have some customization options. To be honest, this is probably my most used widget of the whole Notion Home. If I ever, land on there, this is what I look at. But other than that, yeah, still would prefer if I could just pull it as a block everywhere into my Notion workspace. For number 2, we finally get a floating table of content for our long Notion pages. Really nice, so we no longer have to do this 2-column layout with 1 column with the T or C, which now scrolls down. Now instead we have to see on the side, right? We can just hover over it. We see all our headings. We can jump to them. And if you ever want to turn it off, 3 dots on the top, table of contents, and then it's gone. Number 23, URLs pasted into Notion can get now a really nice preview. This is a new option that you will see now whenever you paste a link in Notion. Besides, the URL, the bookmark, and the embed, you have now mention. And if you choose this, it will turn it into this little preview, right, where it grabs the page name, it grabs even the favicon, and then the article. So you get just like a prettier way to embed things. In particular, if you create these tool lists, also really nice touch. Number 24 makes it much easier to create really small columns on your databases. As you know, Notion properties kind of have this minimum, width, unless it's a checkbox property. So previously you had to turn things into a checkbox property, make it really small and then turn it back. But now we can simply hold down the Option key, and then we can just drag this and make it really narrow, no matter what type it is. Number 25. Focus time and out of office for Notion calendar entries. To do so, you want to click on an event, and then under the event toggle at the top, you can scroll down and you can say, okay, this is focus time, out of office, or even a birthday if that was relevant. And this ties in into the Google Calendar options, right, of how it is displayed. For example, if you have an out of office event, right, it will automatically deny any meeting invitations that you get to during that period. Number 26 allows you to pin your most frequently tabs in the Notion desktop app. Number 27, you can now use advanced filters even when you look at a locked database. Number 28, if you have a ton of templates for Notion database, you can now simply search for the one that you want to use. To do so, simply go on your toggle, right, in the dropdown for your templates, and you see now I can look just for the SOP and it will only show me that. Now, this is hopefully only the first step, and I'm really waiting for them to, give us some folders or some other options here to, organize them further, because sometimes, particularly on meetings databases, so if you want to do this very individual for a lot of team members, you can get out of hand very quickly, but it's still a good first step. Number 29, Notion AI gets access to ChatGPT and can start answering questions with real-world knowledge. So not only can it search through all the things in your workspace, but it can also, provide you with any general knowledge information. So instead of having to use, a separate app or switching context, I can simply stay in Notion and just ask it, what day is Diwali on in 2025? And will, since it's not information in my Notion workspace, now ask ChatGPT to find the answer to that. There we go. And we see it tells me this is AI knowledge, right? So it used ChatGPT, GPT-4 and Claude in order to get that information rather than information within my workspace. Number 30 brings the first Notion AI connector, and it is Slack, which means Notion AI can also search through your Slack workspace and serve you answers for your questions based on conversations over there. Number 31, suggest edits. With that, editing workflows in Notion become a lot more powerful. And in order to trigger it, we have several options. First, we can simply highlight something. And then here, beside the comment option, we have this suggest edit. And this will, turn on this suggest edit mode. And now any changes I make on this page, right? If I say now instead of brand guidelines, let's call this, marketing guidelines. And we see this pops up similar to a comment, but I see the old version, I see the new version, I can accept it, I can reject it, and go back to the previous one. Alternatively, we can always go to 3 dots and here, suggest edits, turn that on or turn it off. And then we see this bubble here at the top also just indicating that we're in this mode and we need to get out of it, right, to just add content randomly. Number 32, search and replace. You can trigger Notion search by simply using Command F or Control F on Windows, and then say, I want to find all instances of Notion, and I can go on replace, and I can replace this with Notion, and I could say replace all, and it would swap that out for the other version. So you see now everything is capitalized. Number 33, Notion Calendar is now available on Android. Number 34 brings us a new inbox for our Notion notifications. The new inbox comes with this side panel. Notion really loves side panels in 2024. We have a few options. We first can, permanently pin this and lock this, right, so it doesn't go away if we don't want it to. We can go through here and say, on all of them, accept them, or we can mark them as read, and we can, archive them all. So similar functionality to before, and still not at the point where I would say this is perfect to, launch all your workflows, but it's better and helps with a lot of steps. And hopefully we see some more love for it in 2025. Number 35, one-click AI skills. These one-click skills are basically pre-written prompts, so you don't have to do that, right? So whenever you go on Notion AI, you see all these options that you have here, and basically just adds Notion's own, in-between prompting for whatever you say. So for example, making a flowchart, right? You could ask it to create a mermaid chart based on some language, but just a bit easier to just having to click somewhere rather than having to type it out yourself. Number 36 makes it easier to import your projects and tasks from Asana. Number 37, you can now add RSVP notes to calendar invites from Notion Calendar. Number 38 is a really exciting one. Notion charts are finally here. Charts definitely a contender for the Notion update of the year. So many cool use cases to help you visualize all the information that you have in Notion. These are just a few examples that I have in my ultimate Notion chart pack. Again, right, if you're on my newsletter, you'll get all of these templates for free, so you can easily add them. And yeah, again, right, in particular in a company setting also, there are just so many great examples of how you can utilize them, right? Whether that's visualizing cash flow, seeing which tasks are at risk, like how many tasks are overdue, doing burn down charts or burn up charts to tracking progress, all the way to it, and maybe having some workload distribution triggers across people. So yeah, just overall, absolutely amazing. Full tutorial for Notion charts down below in the description. Number 39, you can now comment on database properties. That means you can just hover over any property, add comment, is this really the person to do this? And just like with normal Notion comments within pages, you can see them on the page, resolve them, and use it to, better collaborate. Number 40, in the desktop app, tabs now preview if you hover over them. Number 41, you can now add links to your images. This is really useful to build better navigation on your pages, and to do so, simply hover over the element, click on the 3 dots, and now you can see you can add a link here. And this will make it hoverable, so then after you've added a link, if you hover over it, it gives you a quick indication that you can actually click on it. Number 42 is a reworked functionality of how you can quickly move several entries from your page into a database and apply a certain template. This is actually a very underrated Notion trick because it is kind of hard to find in the UI, and it is really, really useful still because we can use it to apply templates to a lot of entries at once. So let's say we have some content ideas and we want to automatically apply our blog post template to them. Now, of course, we could move them into this database, right, and then click on every single time on the blog post template. But instead, what we can do is we can click on the 6 dots and say turn into page in. And now we can look for the name of the template, right? So you don't want to look for the database, which would be content pipeline, because that just moves it in there. Instead, what you want to do is you want to search for the name of the template, which is the blog post template. Takes a second. And then you see here at the bottom, oops, now it went away. We see here, if we hover, go there and don't mess it up, at the bottom, blog post template in content pipeline. So I click on that, and now in the moment I have all of these 3 in here, and it applied that template to it, and I get here also the links. So if I turn it into a page from somewhere else, we keep having the reference there to quickly jump into the database. Thanks to update number 43, Notion buttons can now open URLs. To do so, just add a button to your Notion page, click on the settings, and then as the action, use the open option, and then just paste the link that you want to open. And that way, when you then click on it, instead of opening a Notion page, it opens the actual page on the web. Number 44. If you use subtasks and a flattened list view, parents are now clickable. In case you didn't know, once you have subtasks activated, you can always on every view go into the 3 dots, and then here under customize tasks, you see subtasks. And here you can see how they are shown. Currently, it's like the flattened list, and you see it becomes clickable, so I can click into it. It will actually open the parent item, which wasn't possible before, but you can also, of course, choose parents only or as card property. Number 45 is probably my favorite, or at least one of the favorites of this long list. And it is improved callouts. Definitely not as flashy as some of the big ones, but since you use callouts in so many layouts, this just gets used so often. So what you can do now is you can simply type /callout. And what the new one does is you can remove first the icon, right? Which makes it much easier. Before that, we had to get like the transparent PNGs or so. Now we can simply go on icon and say we want to remove this. Now it's gone. And that means A, it's much clearer look. B, we can use this in combination with the default background to just get these nice border elements. Particularly nice if you have, several columns and you want to separate the page. So as you can see, right, this is just like a very useful container. Plus, part of the reworked callouts is that you can now put anything on the first line. Previously, it had to just be standard text, but now on the first line you can have anything, right? You can have like a heading on the first line. Again, just adding adding more utility to these blocks and giving you this nice layout option for your pages. Number 46, granular database triggers. So as you can see here, I have several triggers for my Notion database automations, and I can choose now whether this should happen when all triggers occur, right? So all of them need to be fulfilled, when any of them are fulfilled, right? Previously, it was only any, so if any of the things would happen, so that didn't really allow you to stack these things. But in this case, right, we can now say something, okay, if the status is edited and responsible is empty, only then set responsible to Matthias. Otherwise, don't do anything, don't override responsible if there's someone in already. Number 47 makes it easier to debug your Notion formulas, because now it actually shows you the data type next to the property. You'll see this in the formula editor. So if I pull in the status, you see I get the little status icon next to it. If I were to pull in clients, I get this pulled in. And that just means that if I now write any formulas, right, I always know what is the original property type. Important, this doesn't take the custom property. So you see clients actually has this custom property icon. It still takes the default relation one. So you're always reminded of, okay, this is the type of property I'm actually work with. Number 48, in your settings, you can see now all the devices that you're currently logged in with Notion and log out of them if you forgot to sign out of a friend's device. To see your devices, go to the Notion settings, then to my account, and at the very bottom, you see a list of all of them. And while you're on this page, make sure to set up the two-factor verification. Just would be a shame if you lost your Notion account due to any security issues. Number 49, the AI connector for Google Drive is there. So besides Notion and Slack, we can now also search through Google Drive documents. Number 50 allows us to reference specific pages in our Notion AI prompts. This is really useful because it allows you to outsource part of your prompting to your already existing Notion documents, right? You should anyway have a lot of these style guides or so in your single source of truth. So what you can do is when you write your prompt, so please rewrite this using our, and then type @ and then just like anywhere else, you can now reference your style guide, or anything else, and it will, put that into the prompt part. Number 51, more AI updates. You can now also upload images or PDFs to Notion AI and ask questions about them. So, for example, I can just go in here, paste document in and ask it to please summarize this document. And after a few moments, we hopefully should get our response. There we are. So we learned that a Harvard Business Report tells me that 97% of respondents, blah, blah, agree, right? So whatever it is that you want to extract from this, can of course make the prompt more precise, but it's really cool that we don't need to use a separate tool for this. Number 52, since AI overall gets you more useful, we get a global shortcut, Command-Shift-J, to open Notion AI from anywhere if we have the desktop app installed. Number 53, we have now a dedicated page where we can chat with Notion AI, similar to the way that ChatGPT, Claude, or these big chatbox works. We made it pretty far through the list, so now we have a few really, really big highlights. Number 54, Notion Forms. Notion Forms are perfect to quickly collect input both from internal people and from external stakeholders. And once the form is shared, you can use that link and actually add it to a button. So to quickly, open it and create an even better UI. As you can see, right, I'm submitting my response as me. You can also have anonymous form responses. Your answers are automatically linked to the database properties. So if you have also select properties, right, the option that exists on database show up here, and just overall a really great experience. If you need a full tutorial on how to use Notion Forms, I have a quick link for you down below in the description as well. Number 55, database layouts. This is probably one of the biggest UI changes that have come to Notion in a long time, and I'm very, very excited for it. So you see we're making use of it on this marketing experiments page. We have pinned our most important properties. So we get, this nice horizontal stack of information. We have then our 2 key or 3 key informations down below. And for example, for number properties, it's also really, really big, right? So if I 300% down here really draws the eye to it, then I can outsource, put a lot of the other properties that are not as relevant to the side. and even then put them into certain sections. Now, I'm still experimenting with the best layouts, but what I've currently found works best is to basically focus on the 3 core properties that you want to pin. And oftentimes, in terms of project management, right, it will be the owner, the due date, the status. Then have 1 or maximum 2 properties, pinned below. This here is an exception because we have some more information, but in general, only 1 or 2. And then have on the sidebar here, these 2 sections at least with like the main properties and then the other properties, so the helper properties. And for other, I would recommend you always select hide when empty, right? So this is actually set up wrong. So I can just click on this quickly, right? And say property visibility, hide when empty, so it disappears. But then for the other properties, I want to always show them, even if they're empty, because it makes it easier to edit them. And you can always toggle this on and off by clicking here or here in the top corner if you don't want to see it and just focus on the content itself. By the way, this specific setup, right, the marketing experience is part of one of my recent videos on like 7 amazing use cases if you use Notion for marketing. Again, link for that in the description if you want to check it out. Number 56, Notion's new database automations. These new database automations have opened up so many cool possibilities in Notion. The biggest one or the most exciting one, probably fully native recurring tasks in Notion. And this has become possible because now when you create your a database automation, you have access to formulas, which allows you to reference properties from the thing that triggered it. So in this case, right, we want to repeat this entry. So whenever it is set to complete and the type is set to weekly sprint meeting, then please, increase the due date based on, date at 7, days based on the current last due date. Just one of many options that you can do with that. Another update part of this was that you can also send notifications now via Gmail, and both things together, just again, really, really cool. I don't have a full, mega guide to that yet. I'm working on it for next year, but I have the first few use cases, again, linked for you down below in the description. Number 57 is Notion Marketplace. The new marketplace is pretty cool for creators because it allows you now to take actually payments through Notion. Now, I don't have a lot of templates, to be honest, and I don't intend to go into the template business, but still, it's really, really cool that you can, take payments to Notion. Notion will also handle the VAT for you, right? So it is a merchant of record. And if someone wants to return a template, they can, have a 14 days refund policy. But if they do, it automatically also claws the template back. You can also stop templates from being duplicated against your will, right? So there are a lot of things that you can now do if you want to plan to build your business around it. And also as a consumer, right, it's a lot easier now to buy these templates, try them out, and if you don't like them, give them back. And number 58, we can now save our custom emojis. Pretty sure there's another dark horse for the number 1 Notion update award this year. When you go to your icons, you can now say, okay, please upload one. And after you've uploaded it, you get a little icon and you can save it for everyone in the workspace. And that means then everyone can reuse these emojis and you don't have to constantly re-upload them, saving you a ton of clicks. Number 59 brings a really cool improvement for scheduling links in Notion Calendar. Throw back to the beginning of this video where I said that the scheduling links in Notion Calendar were one of my favorite features, and they're now much better. Because if you set one up, you can now say that this is actually whether it's a single use or multi-use link, right? So if you uncheck this, then several people can book with this link. Plus, you can tell it to avoid conflicts, which also wasn't possible before. Again, making this a much more robust scheduling solution. Thanks to update number 60, we can now color the individual columns on simple tables in Notion. Simple tables are definitely not as cool as databases, but they have their use case. And now it's just easier to make them pretty. So on a table, right, you can, of course, as previously, right, just give it a header row. But now what you can also do is if you select an individual column, you can now say, okay, the color for this one should be, an orange background. Or I would like to have the price per person, right? I would really like to highlight this. So if we can hit this, yes. We want to make sure that here the color is red text. Just, again, a little bit more styling for our options. Number 61. Both on the gallery view and the board view, the individual cards are now a lot more rounded. And number 62, checkboxes finally catch up to the overall design language of Notion and also get rounded borders. Number 63 brings a bunch of really cool Notion iPhone shortcuts. So let me just quickly pull up my phone and then the shortcut app on the iPhone. You see, if I now create a new shortcut, I can say add action. And here, if I search for Notion, we get a lot more options than previously. The most exciting one for sure is create document without opening, because this allows me to then set up a shortcut that I could trigger either via Siri or if you have a newer iPhone via the action button to very, very quickly capture information. You see, we currently have create a page with title and body. Now we need to, of course, define it. So what we would probably want to do is, just add a text input element before, right? So where is it? No, it is under the input options. Get text from input. Yes, perfect. So we'll drag this above the element, and we just say this, get text from input, and then create page with the title. We can now select the variable, and we can put in the text. And if we wanted to have a separate body text, we would do this twice. And then with that, just like 2 minutes, we have a quick capture setup for Notion. And number 64 revamps a very classic part of Notion, the Notion color picker. The new Notion color picker is a lot more compact. So if I now highlight some text, you see that this is, much more stacked. I get my recently used colors, I have my text colors and my background color options. Just like before, you can still use also the keyboard shortcut Command-Shift-H, right, to just apply the most recent formatting. It's not everywhere rolled out though in the, in the system. So as you saw just before, if we, for example, pick the color here in the database, we still get that old color picker where everything is stacked, what is it in this case? Vertically, I think. All right, that was a lot. Now I'd love to hear from you. What is your favorite update of 2024? And what would you love to see from Notion in 2025? Now, if you want to get a better idea of where Notion is heading to, who better to talk to than Notion's co-founder himself? Here's a quick 15-minute conversation I recently had with Akshay about the future of Notion. Just click here and I will see you in a second.